From the heart of Denton, Texas, it's the Creators Table with your host, writer-creator Chris Peel. Tonight's guest is veteran indie comic artist Carlos Granda. And now, here's Chris Peel.
Hey-oh, yeah. All right. Welcome one and all. Welcome to the Creators Table. I am your host, your humble host, Christopher Peel, writer-creator for Bootlegger Comics. This show is going to be a little different from your typical, comic book show. Not really focusing so much on promotion of current projects, but just kind of talking about talking to creators about their process, their perspective, and the journey they go through. So tonight, my guest, a very special guest. 8-year comic book veteran, such publishers as Zenescope. All right. Black Mask, and many others, including Bootlegger Comics. Please give a warm round of applause to Carlos Granda. All right. Hey, buddy. How you doing?
Hey, what's up?
Not much, man. It's good to actually talk to you for once.
Yeah, right. The first time.
Right. How's your weekend going so far?
It's the usual, just working.
Yeah. So, like I said here at the beginning, and we I talked to you about this via email. Is we're going to do a little bit different thing here, not as much promotion, just as much as just kind of talking to creators like yourself and kind of getting into the bones of how they how you guys create your magic. So I tell you what, let's get started. And you've got a pretty impressive resume. So let me ask you this: like, when you look back at your early work, what do you see now that you didn't then?
I think I'm more free right now than when I used to be. Let's say about 6 years ago, something like that. I think I'm a little bit more creative, and I don't know. I think I take a lot of chances now that I didn't used to do before.
Okay. So, what do you think kind of got you to that? Was it just the experience of working with other creators, working on your own thing? It just kind of helped you to kind of spread your wings, so to speak?
No, really. It kind of happened on 2019. I usually go every year to New York Comic Con. I have been going since 2008, I think, every year. Tried my goal as a comic creator was to work for Marvel or DC, the usual.
Yeah.
And on 2019, it happened something that 3 different persons told me the same thing. One was an editor from DC, Dan Didio, and a writer and a comic book artist. They just told me, "Oh, you are just too old to get into Marvel or DC. It's only that you keep trying." And that kind of bring me down and depressed me a little bit. For a brief time, I considered doing something else besides comics. But when I was in a low point, I got contacted by the 2 people. One that I used to work with, I had worked before, that was Matt Pizzolo from Black Mask, and Asif, that is the creator of Aragna, one of the comics I work right now. And they asked me to do a comic. So since I was considering doing something else, I decided, okay, I'm gonna do these 2 comics the way I would like to do it, without thinking about the big publishers and all those advices that you usually hear from editors, what to do and what not to do in the comics page, I decided to ignore that and just have fun with the pages since it was gonna be my last working comic. And I had a lot of fun doing those. And funny enough, after that year, everything started to go way better, and I started getting more jobs and higher paying jobs. So yeah, that changed the way I saw things. Besides, it just got compounded with the fact that crowdfunding was just getting bigger and bigger, and the whole thing just changed my way of seeing things. Like I told you, almost every single job I have done from the last 6 years have been on publisher with crowdfunding comics. Um, and things have been doing really great. And also, I'm even now considering doing my own comics in that way.
Oh, that's awesome. What kind of challenges do you run into when you're collaborating with somebody? So you're you were working on their book, so you're working off of their script. What kind of challenges come up?
To be honest, I haven't found a lot of challenge. I've been doing this for 16 years now. I think I get along very nice with editors and with writers. And so far, I can honestly say that for the most part, I don't even get correction on my stuff. I barely get any notes. So I don't know. I don't think it's the only challenge I face sometimes is the workload, because I sometimes even work on 3 comics at the same time, and it's
wow.
kind of hard. And I am also a bit of a workaholic, so yeah, I just sacrifice sleep and on time just to work.
I can attest to that. What you said about you never get many notes or have to do many revisions. He told me the exact same thing when we were getting ready to do the Nostradamus effect, and sure enough, I had nothing. He sent me his rough. You sent me your rough pencils, and I was like, yeah, no, I got nothing. So yeah, you definitely got the talent, man.
Thank you.
So that you kind of answered my next question. Actually, I was going to ask if there was a time where you considered quitting, and you just shared that with us. So it's interesting how, when we're starting out and we get all this feedback from people about you should do this, you should do that, and it comes from a good place. They're wanting to help, they're wanting to see you grow. But man, I find that once you just kind of drop all that and I think that's a perfect example. You just have fun with it, and it kind of helps to bring, it helps to bring more out of you, and more on the table and on the page. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and besides, I think that the business of comics has been changing right now. I have a couple of friends that have publishers, small publishers, and for the last, I don't know, 6-7 years, I have been talking to them, and the main goal they have is we have to get into Diamond. You have to get into Diamond. We have to get into stores, and now Diamond is gone, so they have to switch their goal to something else. And I think that's the way the market is heading. Like here in Colombia, for example, there is not really a comic industry as such. There are many people doing comics, but it's just individual effort. Everyone has to try to get to the readers and just sell what they can do in comic conventions and small comic conventions on book fairs, something like that. It's more direct to customer work than trying to find a distributor, because there are no any distributors in Colombia. There are really no comic book stores. There are some pop culture stores that sell some comics, but there is not something like that here in Colombia. And it's funny because I see that the States is going in the same direction. Yeah, there are a lot of comic book stores there, but many people doing comics are just small press comics, so they don't have the luxury to send comics all over the place. They have to limit themselves to those events that are close to them and sell that way. Or now with crowdfunding and direct-to-consumer service, that I think is really the future. Comics are a little bit more expensive now. It's not that almost every comic from a Kickstarter campaign is about 15 bucks, something like that, 10, 15 bucks. Is almost 3 times the price of a mainstream comic. but people find that happy because they know they are getting something different and maybe a little bit more experimental, something different than what they get from the mainstream. Because a lot of people, when they think about comics, they think about superheroes, but I believe that's just a small part of the whole comic ecosystem. There are a lot of more stories about all kinds of things that people are creating.
Yeah, I think you're spot on there. I think we're going to see more and more, um, you know, publishers take advantage of crowdfunding. I mean, we're already seeing it. With Transformers has been crowdfunded. The big huge collections. Same thing
Yeah.
with Transformers, and I think the Transformers was like one of the biggest money maker in crowdfund to date, I believe. The amount of money that it generated. So I think crowdfunding is definitely going to start playing more of a role. I don't necessarily know if it's going to be the complete future, but it's definitely going to play a significant part as this direct or the LCS, local comic shop market is really floundering.
Yeah, because people like I say, my friends that have comic companies, they tell me that they are part of the comic industry and that's why they wanted to get into this distribution. But the way I see it, it's not just a comic industry. There are at least two comic industries that run parallel. One is the ones with the big IPs, something Marvel, DC, and even Image, but there are tons and tons of creators that will never get a distribution deal, but they have their loyal customers. So I think it's two separate industries that have to live together, and the strategies to get to the readers are just different.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree 100%. When I first started hearing about crowdfunding, I thought it was cool because it almost sounds like an online comic book convention,
Yeah,
and like every campaign is its own like table and artist alley. You know what I mean?
yeah.
The marketing's a lot different though. That's a struggle is the marketing.
Yeah, that's one.
So let's get back to kind of your process, right? So let's say you've been hired by X comic book publisher to do their book, and they send you over their script. So how do you approach a page that you're getting ready to start? What are you thinking about? How do you come up with how to panel placement and stuff like that? How does that work for you?
Well, the first thing I do is I try to read the whole script. Sometimes that's not possible because even it's more common now that the writer doesn't send you the whole script. They just send you a couple of pages, like maybe a batch of 5 or 10 pages. So you can do those, and that's what they will use to promote the comic. So you don't get a whole idea of what the comic is about. You just have to focus on those pages individually and try to make the most out of them. So what I do is just I know what the overall theme of the comic is, but I try to approach every single page like a whole story, just not thinking about the other page what is going to happen, but try to put everything I can on those pages and focus on every single one of them. Maybe like its own piece of art, to say it in some way, its own tale to some something. It's just a story condensed into one page. So everything you put there has to be understood, has to be clear, without the aid of the other pages. And I don't know. I read the page. I try to see what is the main action happening in the page, and that's when I decided which panel, unless the writer says so, what is the bigger panel in the page, and try to focus everything on the page on that single panel, and use a little bit of the time so everyone when they read it is looking at the page, his attention finally is going to be drawn to that panel.
Nice. Um, so so page layout, like that's that's a mystery to me. Um, I I write this. I'll write a story or what have you, and I have kind of an idea in my head. Because when I write, I see it like a movie. It
Yeah.
plays like a movie in my head, and I try to kind of put that on paper as to what I see in my mind. But one thing I don't want to do is stifle the artist, and kind of pinhole them into this specific, thing I see in my head. And I figure you, as the artist, especially a professional, has a much better sense of what works on a page than I do. And I'm just speaking for myself here. So, do you find that that's kind of a common thread with writers, or how's your experience been with that?
No, to be honest, most of the writers I have worked with, they just, for the most part, they leave everything visual to the artist. Yeah, sometimes that they have, like I said, maybe they think something in the page is the most important thing. They specify that this is gonna be the main focus of the page, or do this panel bigger, something like that. But for the most part, they just leave that part to the artist because, oh no, I believe they know that that's why they are getting an artist, so they can make the most out of it.
Okay. So, do you? I kind of think you might have touched on this, sort of, but how do you like to work? Do you like to work with kind of a strict, not strict, but just like a very explicit explanation of what each page is supposed to be? Do you like to have maybe just kind of an idea of what is supposed to be there, so you can kind of flex your artistic muscles? I mean, how do you like that?
It all depends because if the writer has some very defined idea what they want in the page, mostly with specific things like references or locations. If they have something in their head that they really want to happen certain way, I have one writer that really uses a lot of reference, and he sent me this massive script that for 24 pages, it's something like 150 pages, just filled with photos and reference and everything, because he has an idea of where the action has to happen. And since the story happened in the real world, this in this case in Los Angeles, he knows the layout of the place. I don't. For maps, I can use Google Maps for the most part to sort streets and everything, or maybe look at the architecture of the place and street. But when in some ways, since I'm in Colombia, people don't realize this, but uh, little subtle things about language that Americans use here in Latin America and other parts of the world we don't use. For instance, if someone tells me, and now the car moves west, I'm lost. I have no idea what is west. We use left and right here in Latin America. But I see that both Americans tend to use left, north, west, and that's not the way we speak here. So when someone told me, and the car went west that way, I have no idea what's going to go. So if the writer tell me from point A to point B what is the destination, it's much easier to me. In that way, I really like when they specify those things. But other than that, if she's a fantasy story or something like that, I really prefer when they give me the liberty to stretch my artistic muscle.
Okay, cool. So, along with working in comics, you're also a teacher. So, how long have you been doing that?
Well, I'm not so much of a teacher, but I consider myself more of a mentor
Oh,
than a
okay.
teacher, because it all begins in the 90s when I started trying to do comics here in Colombia. It was about 97, 96, something like that. I wanted to do comics. And there was a couple of people that were doing comics in Colombia. And I contacted them. And it was very strange because back then it was something like they were doing comics and it was rare. And when you talk to them about, hey, I want to do the same that you do, it's almost like you are telling them, I want to steal something from you. So I got no help. No one
Oh,
told me how to do comics, what to do, how to begin. And it was very frustrating because the only help I can get was a couple of books I can find on a library about how to do comics in the States. And most of the things that they talk about those books didn't apply here in Colombia. So it was very frustrating. So when I started to I don't know, get consistent work in comics and with YouTube and everything, I decided to be that person that I didn't have. And if anyone asks me how to do something, I'm open about everything I have learned. And with that, I have also started a couple of expos about comics, a couple of fairs, trying to expand the comic medium here in Colombia.
Oh wow, that's great. How's that going?
Well, it's great. One of the events I started ended with the pandemic. Sadly, it just
Oh
went away.
yeah.
But the other one is right now the biggest comic book event in Colombia. It's called El Pico. It's something like the independent uh, comic book festival, something like that would be the translation. And right now, someone else is taking care of it, is in charge of it. I quit the administration because it was too much of with my work and handling the event. I was a little bit, I don't know, not as involved as I should be, so someone else took him. But now it's going. Right now, he's in the 11th year, I think, that he's been done.
Oh wow.
It's going twice a year, and I don't know. I see more and more people getting involved in comics every day.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's great to hear. That's really impressive that you've started this thing and it's continuing 11 years later. Those things are hard to put together. So congratulations on that. Um, as a mentor, what do you see or what do you notice with new artists? Um, what do you first notice with their work? Like, is it they need to tighten this up, or is it like oh, this is like what really stands out typically when you see a new artist's work?
What I see is that people generally want in some way to, let's say, take the fast lane, and maybe they have a book or a series and an anime. Mostly like here in Colombia, most of the people that try to do comics, they try to do it in manga style, and it basically boils that they like an anime and they try to copy it and do their version of that anime. And I see that what is lacking here is education, not an institution per se, like an university teaching how to do comics, but more like the self-awareness that you have to learn some things to be able to do comics, and try to, I don't know, steer yourself in that direction, because drawing is easy, but telling a story in drawing is more difficult. It's not just do pretty pictures. You have to know how to tell a story. You know how to do composition. You know how to do a lot of things. It's not even it's not solo only drawing, because most of comics today that I see that do really well, the art is not, let's say, it is magnificent, it's great, but it's not quote unquote good art. It's not anatomically correct. It's just great. It's dynamic. It's more focused on the intention of the story than just doing pretty pictures.
Yeah, because I've seen a lot of people who can draw, but not a lot of people who can tell a story with that. So, yeah, you're absolutely spot on there. That it's definitely two different skill sets.
Yeah, and you see something like I know Daniel Warren Johnson is an artist that is really hot right now. A lot of people love his art. I love his art, but his drawing is not at all anatomically correct. If you start correcting him, he will just end up with stiff figures. But the good thing about him is that his line is very rough. He's very loose. His anatomy is all over the place, but it's mostly about telling the story.
Right. So, is there one piece of advice most artists, most new artists ignore but shouldn't?
One piece of advice that most artists ignore, but I will say, Well, there are plenty. Maybe one is yeah. For one, is slow down, especially if you're young. Yeah, many people have committed that mistake. They just wanna produce tons of things, but they just need to slow down and take a look at what they're doing. Is I will say it's not about the amount of things you do, but the quality of the stuff you do.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe in line with what I say before. Again, it's for my experience here in Colombia. I know maybe in the States it's a little bit different, but take your time to observe more and draw less. Just observe the world and study more. And right now with cell phones, sadly, but a lot of people are getting away from books and even long form content. And I think the art form is suffering from that because the stories are, sadly, some of the stories I've seen now are really not really stories. It's like people are trying to put TikToks into comic pages, but they are not focusing on the story.
Oh man, that could be a story right there. Trying to put TikToks in comics. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a trope right now, a joke. I see most comics, it's sadly, but a lot of comics from the main two companies is a lot of talking heads, just people talking in coffee and eating, and not a lot of superheroing.
Right.
So yeah, the people no, you know what is the advice I will tell to artists? To live first and then to try to do comics, because I think it was, I don't know, maybe it wasn't that clear, because he said something in the lines of you have to live first to have something to tell. And a lot of people doesn't do anything. They spend more of their childhood and teen years on their cell phone doing nothing. And when they try to write something, they don't have anything to say.
That's true. That's true. And read. If they want to write, they need to read.
Read and travel and try, I don't know, try things that seem scary.
Very true. That's pretty good. Have you ever had to sacrifice a cool drawing for the sake of a story?
Yeah, all the time. But like I say, story is king. You cannot just say that, like for instance, for the longest time, I didn't call myself an artist. I found that was a little bit pretentious. I told myself that I was a tool in a machine that uses art to produce stories. But when you believe yourself too much to be an artist, you sacrifice the story for the artist part. And even now, what I started at the beginning when I told you, I started to experiment a little bit with different things. One of the things that I'm more grateful for that period of my life is that I stopped with the belief that you have to develop a style. Right now, I don't believe I have a style. I think I can adapt myself to different kinds of stories. And I think that one of my strong points, that I don't have only one style. I can do something a little more mainstream, something a little more indie. I have done a couple of child books, for little kids, and I think it is important to use the art in, I don't know, to make the story stronger. Not just say, "Oh, this is the way I do things," and I don't know, I'm the artist. I have to decide this in lieu of everything else.
Yeah, that's true. You know, and it's a balance to get the words and the art to really mesh and to connect in a very different way. I've always been fascinated by with artists. I remember getting the first comic book I ever worked on was a humor book back in the early 2000s called Some Big Lumberjack. And I remember when we got our art back for the first time, I was blown away by, you have something as a writer, you have something in your mind, and then to see it brought into the real world is just incredible. And when I got, the pages from you for the Nostradamus effect, I mean, this is a story I'd had in my mind for over 30 years. And to see those pages, and then Champe's incredible colors, like it's really, it's almost, not to sound trite or whatever, but it's almost magical when that happens, from my perspective, anyways.
Well, I think that's something with writers that I kind of admire, that you relinquish control of your story to the artist. Because, yeah, I don't know, it might be a little bit hypocritical regarding what I just said, but I have written some stories. I have published a couple of comics here in Colombia, and like I told you, I want to publish comics in the States as well with my stories. But I know I don't have the time to draw everything I write. But I'm having a really hard time letting go of my story for someone else to draw.
Yeah, I can understand that. With you having that ability, I could see how it's hard to give up that control, essentially.
Yeah.
To trust somebody else, with this vision, and you've got the talent to do it. It's just a time constraint.
Yeah, and like you said, when I'm writing the stories, I'm visualizing how I will do it. So it will be hard to have it in my mind one way and getting, maybe, I don't know, maybe I will get pages and I will be blown away what other artists do, but it is hard. I think it's hard what you do.
Yeah, for sure. So this brings me to another question I had is, what does a typical day look like for you? What's a typical work day for a professional artist?
Well, maybe I'm a little bit unusual because right now I live in a farm. It's a 10-acre farm. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's 5 hectares. I think it's the right conversion to acres. And right now I live alone, so I have to take care of the farm for the morning. So I wake up, I have to take care of the weeds, to take care of the garden, and how do you say that, the hortalizas, I don't know how the word for that, where you grow food in the farm.
Sure.
And take care of the
your
stream.
crops.
Yeah, my crops, and it's just for me, but you have to take care of that, and that takes me about most of the morning, and then I just go home. I have to take care of the house and eat, and I have cats. I have 7 cats, so I have to take care of them. And about something like maybe 1 p.m., 2 p.m., I just go to the table to drop to my drawing table, and I spend the rest of the day there. Just make pauses when I'm hungry or something like that, but I spend most of my day there. I usually do about 12 to 14 hours of drawing each day.
Wow. Wow. I wish I could do that with writing. I've got so many distractions,
Yeah. Well, I live like a hermit, so I really don't like. I almost don't watch TV or movies, and I really don't like social media. You can see I barely post anything anytime.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of distractions, to be honest. Like I told you, I'm a workaholic.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, but when I was first reaching out to you about seeing if you'd be interested in the Nostradamus effect, I even had to verify, like, are you really this guy? Because I think I found you on like Reddit or something, and then I went to your ArtStation page, and like I contacted you from there, being like, hey, I want to make sure you are this guy, because I could find like no online presence. And the ArtStation, you talked about how you can fit any style. That is really evident on your ArtStation page. And, because you've got all these samples of different things that you've worked on, and you can really see all the different styles that you do. And yeah, I thought that was I was kind of laughing about that to myself as you were talking. Like, are you really that guy?
Yeah, but I really need to update all my online presence because since the pandemic, I moved to the farm. I'm really far from any city, and I really enjoy the loneliness. But I really let all my online presence go away. But I need to get better on that because yeah, that's the way you get jobs. So yeah.
That's true. Yeah, Instagram, of course, is where I've had the most luck finding artists for different projects. Um, oh, I had a question. It was right on my brain there. We were talking about that. Like, oh, I know what. So I assume you get contacted for various projects. I mean, do you turn down projects if someone says, "Hey, here's my comic book," maybe gives you a script or whatever, and says, "Are you interested?" Or you talk rates and things, and have you ever just for whatever reason the project you've just been like, you know what, I'm not your guy for this, or have you ever done that?
No, the only reason I reject projects is because time, because I know I cannot make the deadline. So I don't like to commit to something I'm not gonna be able to do. But other than that, I try everything. It doesn't matter the topic, what it is. It just give me an opportunity to try something different and see another point of view. So yeah, the only way I will reject something is because I'm just booked with other books and I don't have the time to do it.
Okay. What inspires you? Like what is there an artist that inspires you? Is it just the creation process in general?
Well, I know it's more, yeah, the medium itself, I think, is the one that inspired me, the comics itself, not that much. Right now, yeah, I take something from artists, from a couple of artists, but like I told you, here in Colombia, there is no comic industry, and we just get, I don't know, a trickle of the comics that are produced in the States. And that is now. In the 80s, when I was growing up and when I fell in love with comics, we just get a little bit of comic from Europe. Most of the comics I read when I was very young was Disney comics, Scrooge McDuck and Donald comics, something like that, and the Smurf, maybe Tintin, thing from Europe. So it was the medium of comic that made me fall in love with it. Very late in my, I don't know, let's say career, I started to pay attention to artists because I never pay attention who did anything. It's just when I started going to comic conventions that I saw, oh, I have the opportunity to talk to the people that do this. Maybe I should start learning some of the names and follow them. And with that, yeah, I started following some artists and taking things from some of them. One of the things the ones I remember is Anne Hughes. I'm a great fan of Anne Hughes, of Terry Dawson. Um, Mark Schultz is another one I really like. And just other classic artists like Boris Vallejo. I really like the art of Boris Vallejo and Frank Frazetta. That's the things
Oh
that
yeah.
come my attention. But I think it's more the process itself that really inspires me. The fact that I think it was Dan Jurgens in a documentary that said one time that one of the things he loves about comics that you have the power in your hands to create worlds, and that's true. To make comics, you really don't need a huge budget or anything like that. You just need a page, a pencil, and that's it. You can create worlds.
True. Let's look at the chat here. We've got from Once Was Cool, also known as Crenshaw, just searched up his ArtStation page. Fantastic stuff. Absolutely, man. You are very talented. Again, I'm not trying to plug the Nostradamus effect here or anything, but just from my experience on working with you with that, I mean, those pages were absolutely beautiful. That cover was stunning. I mean, one takeaway, I did a lot of shows of other creators and stuff, and trying to promote the book. And one thing that always came through was just how impressed everybody was with your artwork.
Yeah, that's a project that's gonna be really fun, but really hard because for the last year or something, I was drawing a book that it was really fun, but I was doing it with a very loose style and not much of detail. So when you contact me and you send me the page, I do like, oh, let me see if I can go back to a more detailed style and put and try to fill the page with everything. And yeah, it's a lot of fun, but if you decide to do a page with a crowd in it, it's gonna be hard.
That the skull was just absolutely stunning with all the ornate filigree and stuff you put onto the skull was just remarkable.
Yeah, that's kind of hard. I know using, but I haven't been able to replicate the detail on the 3 times I have drawn it.
Oh my goodness. Let's talk about some of your past projects. What have been some of your favorites and why?
Well, one of the projects I have really enjoyed was one that I did in 2014, that it was called Pirouette. The first time, no, the second time the first time I worked with Matt Pisolo, the editor of Black Mass, and the second time I worked with a writer that is called Mark Miller, not Mark Miller, sino Mark Miller. And the story was really fun because it was kind of a horror story in a circus, but it was not was a gory story, but more like a psychological horror. And it was really fun because it was very different doing the circus, and all the characters were very colorful and very different. And was one of the first times that I tried to do something a little bit more stylized with the setting. And it was a blast to do it, to be honest. And working with Mark is very nice. I worked with him a couple of times, and he has a very, very different mind. His stories are really, really fun. That's one. I have been working for almost 10 years in a book that is called Geek Girl. It's from a writer that is called Sam Johnson. It's also very fun because the story is very silly, to be honest. But what really fascinates me is that he puts in the script some details that seem silly, and it turns out that they have a payoff maybe 5 years later. That little silly thing he put in the story, it meant something. So I really like the way he writes.
Cool. What you got any projects coming up or that you're working on right now you're excited about?
Well, it must sound like I'm just being how do you say? I'm trying to hype everything I do, but I'm excited. I'm excited about all the projects that I'm doing right now. I don't turn down any project, but I have found that almost every project I have done, I end up loving it or very excited about it. Right now, I'm working on 2 books, 3 books if we count the Nostradamus effect, and one is called how is it called? Heroes of Homeroom C. It's about a couple of twins. They have superpowers, but on one battle they lost their powers, so they had to go back to school. So it's kind of a teen drama, and it's really fun. And I love drawing those characters. The other one is another volume of Giger. It's now the issue 19, the one that we are gonna do right now. So yeah, that's really fun, and I'm looking forward. I know this year I'm gonna do also another book of Arachna, that the Arachnid superhero. I have done 4 books with him, with Asif from X53 Comics. It's also a really fun book because I think it's the only true superhero comic I'm doing, and it's something nice to do something different from. I mostly do horror and mystery, so doing superheroes is nice. And I'm doing a book with Unstoppable Comics that is called New York versus the World. It's a zombie book. And New York has been sealed from the world. It's the only safe place in the world because they just blow up all the tunnels and the bridges, and is isolated from the rest of the world. And it's gonna be fun to do it. It's the first time I do a comic with him. He's a good friend, but it's the first time I work with him. So I know I'm very excited for that project. And I also doing a book of my own. It's called Moonlight Galactica. It's gonna be published with X53 Comics. They want to do Arachna. It is about a space, kind of space police. It's a mix between Barbarella, Buck Rogers, and what is the other? And maybe a little bit of Star Trek. It's a little more sci-fi with a little bit of horror.
Oh, nice. Well, man, that sounds like a great project. How can people get updates on those from you and find out when those are coming out?
Well, for those projects, I will say follow me on social media, but I have to get better at that. So right now, for Geek Girl, they can go to Geek Girl Comics on Facebook. Is the main place where they can find that. Right now, the pre-launch page for Heroes of Homeroom C is on, so they can check it on Kickstarter. And for anything with Arachna and Mule Galactica, they can go to arachnacomics.com and they can find all the info there.
That's great. I'll include links in the description of this video as well to help steer people to where they can go to find out, get updates and stuff. So I know you're more traditional as far as your media. You know, you're not digital, right? You use pencil and ink. How's your setup? Like, do you have certain tools you prefer, or what do you like to use?
Yeah, for the most part, I almost everything do in a traditional way. This is my setup. That's my table. What I do is I have a couple of monitors. That's the monitor I use for references and scripts. There is an auxiliary monitor for maybe another reference and maybe watch podcasts or something like that. At my table, I have all my inking equipment there because most of I don't use pencils. Let's say traditional pencils. I just do rocks in blue pencil, and then I ink directly into the rocks, and then I just scan. I think it's very simple. I don't rely much on technology because I suffer from migraine. So when I look to a screen for a long period of time, I just get horrible migraine. That's why I never transition from traditional to digital.
Nice. Well, that sucks that you get the headaches. My wife has to deal with those. She gets those all the time. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've touched on everything I was really wanting to bring up. You got anything you want to add?
Not really. Like I said, the only thing I like to talk about is how I think it's amazing right now the way comics are evolving to be something a little more, like people like to say, more democratic, where people just choose what comics get produced and just start following the artists, and just you can really create communities with those readers that you are trying to get. Something like these live streams or videos, you see a ton of channels with people creating comics, and I just love that because you go to YouTube and you can find all kinds of people sharing their experience about comics and talking about their own projects and what they are reading. It's not just the creators. You can find tons of people that are reviewing independent comics that you never heard about it. And you will never hear about it if it wasn't because of technology today, or because of crowdfunding, because of YouTube, because people like you and people that just keep growing their communities and they invite other artists to talk about their project. And I really like that because it's not like there is no gatekeeper right now. Everyone can start their own comics. Everyone can start their own YouTube channel about comics and just share the joy. I really love that about this era of comics.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time. It's like you said, it's the gatekeepers have been kind of stripped away. The only real gatekeeper right now is the person who will back your book. They either will or they won't. And a lot of that, of course, has to deal with how many eyes you can get on the project, things like that. And then, they'll look at it and they'll decide whether it's worth their money or not. And, it's such a, I had said that I had thought about crowdfunding almost like online comic book convention. At a comic book convention, when we were doing our first book, Some Big Lumberjack, we called ourselves Half-Ass Publishing. Somebody would cross our table. We'd hey, have you heard of Half-Ass Publishing? I've heard of Some Big Lumberjack. We'd reach out and engage with the people. Whereas that's the big difference, right? With crowdfunding is you're just putting your campaign page out there, and then YouTube is where you're reaching out and trying to engage with potential backers, and X and Instagram to a degree, and I think Substack is pretty popular right now too. Yeah. There's a lot of different avenues, and it's a lot of work.
Yeah, I know, but in some way I think it's a little bit low risk, because before what you do is you invest your money in printing the books, and you have to start going to conventions and try to sell them, and sometimes you don't sell them, and you end up with a ton of books in boxes in that you bet that you will never sell. But now what you do is you do a campaign. If it doesn't get the goal, you try again and again and again until you do it, because it's just a matter of number. You have to get enough eyes on the campaign to make it successful. So you have to keep trying until it goes okay and you can print the book. But you don't have to take the step to print the first and see if people are interested. You now have to get them interested and see the books and see pages and things that you don't do before. And I think that's great. There's another way that more people will do comics, because you don't have to take the risk of printing comics and just think you will.
Right, that's exactly right. And that of course crowdfunding didn't exist 25 years ago. So it was, we printed 2,000 copies of our first issue, and we hit the comic book convention scene hard, and we're able to make it work. We did about 6 issues over the course of like 3 years, but that was some of the best times of my life. We were doing big shows like Wizard World shows, and we'd go out to Baltimore, do the Baltimore convention, and we sold to all the local comic book stores here. So it was cool seeing our book actually in a comic book store. So but yeah, you're taking on all that risk all at once, as opposed to with crowdfunding now. So it's easier in some aspects, less financial burden, but it requires almost more work with the posting and trying to come up with fresh content and stuff like that. So it definitely presents its own challenges.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up here, Carlos. Man, it was a real joy to meet you and talk to you. I really appreciate you coming on. You're the first guest on this new show here at the Creators Table. And I hope, maybe we have you on again later down the line. We'll put, like I said, we'll put your links in the description. And anything left to say to the audience?
No, yes. Thank you for having me as your first guest. Anytime you want me here, I'm just here. You have to ask. And I'm looking forward to working on the Nostromo effect. The Prophet's course right now, right? You changed the name.
That's what it's sitting at right now, but I haven't. Haven't gone definitive yet, but okay. Definitely change is coming up, but positive stuff.
Yeah, but anything, I can't wait to just keep working with you. It's
awesome.
I know I say a lot, but it's really fun.
It was. I had a blast, and again, like I said, seeing your artwork, just my jaw hit the floor. I immediately sent pictures to all my friends. It's like, oh my God, look at this! Holy crap! And so it was a real pleasure. It was easy, man. It was easy working with you. thanks again, buddy. Have a great rest of your weekend. And thank you, everybody, for joining us and watching. And we'll see you on the next time.
Okay. Bye.
All right.